Hi there, Mary here with Beyond Compulsion, the how to stop resource for compulsive and or addictive behaviors. I recently had to cancel my trip to Minnesota where I was going to see my family because of the really high COVID numbers. And I was doing some research online about the COVID obesity connection, and I came across an article by a gentleman named Steve Dorfman. He works for writes for the Palm Beach Post, and the article caught my eye because it said basically that it was going to be what nobody was talking about. And it came up when I was Googling, COVID and obesity. So, a couple interesting things about the article. Number one was that obesity rates in the United States are now above 42%. So, years ago, I was looking at a graph of the obesity rates, and I predicted that what was going to happen was that the obesity category, now over 42%, we're not talking about overweight, we're talking about obesity, BMI, obese, right? So the overweight category would kind of go like this, right? Because people are going on diets, going off diets, going on diets, going off diets, going on this plan, going on this whatever, and then they lose and they gain and they lose and they gain, right? But what the category that's on the rise and is really rising is the obese category. And I talked about it back then, where basically all the diet and fitness stuff is intermittently reinforcing the compulsive behavior with food, which causes the obesity to begin with. And so what happens is people with that intermittent reinforcement, they get in so much deeper that finally that compulsive behavior gets so bad that they end up in the obese category. And that's where we are now, pushing half of all Americans being obese, hence really large COVID rates. But today, that's not really what I want to talk about. The other interesting thing about the article was they quoted Bill Maher, which love Bill Maher, who is talking about obesity without the rose-colored glasses and being politically incorrect. So he's really kind of telling it like it is. So I started looking a little bit further into some of Bill's videos, and one of the things that I found was him. Sorry, my cat is rubbing on the camera stand. I saw him on one video where he was referencing Adele's weight loss and how people kept saying, "Oh, you're pushing her into an eating disorder" and all this kind of stuff, and basically promoting eating disorders. And one thing he said was that the being overweight, being fat, was the eating disorder. And I've said that for years and years and years. Now, the difference between Bill and I is that, that's it. That's right. Then I saw him on Jimmy Kimmel. And on Jimmy Kimmel, he was talking about the COVID obesity connection and how this is an internal problem, not an external problem. He's referencing the obesity and the immune system and the underlying conditions that he basically was saying that obesity was killing us slowly. Now with COVID, it's killing us fast. So, and it being an internal problem. So the difference between Bill and I is that he sees it like it is, but doesn't have the solution to treating the problem, which is the compulsive eating that causes the obesity. It's still, everything you hear is going to be about nutrition and exercise. And like I said, with the rising obesity rates, what's happening is that treatment of diet and exercise intermittently reinforcing what's already a compulsive behavior. Or if they didn't have a compulsive behavior to begin with and they're just dieting to lose a little bit of weight or whatever, then they end up with a compulsive behavior because they are intermittently reinforcing this, right? So where Bill falls short is that he doesn't have the how to stop the behavior that causes it. And thank you, Bill, for putting it out there the way that you do. I love it. I appreciate it. And I know what it feels like to be on the receiving end of being politically incorrect. It's not always a fun place to be. So what I want to do today is I want to, this idea that Adele or whoever, I see it all the time. I just see it like on dancing, and things like that, with where they are basically promoting being fat and like trying to make it okay for young girls to aspire to these, these fat women, which is the idea is that they're good, that they're miserable when they're trying to control their eating. So they should basically just be fat and be happy about it, right? Because losing weight puts them in a miserable place or promotes an eating disorder. Well, like Bill says, the overeating is the eating disorder. And I want to share a letter here. My students write letters to themselves as part of my program to document what they're no longer willing to live with. And to think that people, to promote to young women or men, whatever, that being fat is a happy place. There's so much more to it than just the weight, right? The discomfort of the weight and all of the physical problems that manifest because of being overweight. And of course, one of them being, high risk of death for COVID. But it's much more than that. It's a compulsive behavior, and you cannot treat this behavior with nutrition and exercise. Treating this addiction with nutrition and exercise is going to make it worse. So what I want to do is I want to give it to you straight from the mouth of one of the people that experiences it, so you can really understand what they're going through and how this is so much more than a nutrition issue, right? So I'm going to read you this letter, and it's kind of long, but whatever. So this is the documentation by, we're going to call her A, right? So this is her documenting what it's really like to be be stuck in compulsive eating, right? And what she's no longer willing to live with. Dear A, remember a few weeks ago how you had your hopes smashed and the prospect of going back to your same boring routine was so disappointing that unbeknownst to you, you were already turning to food? You got off work early and went home thinking you would do yoga and that would make you feel better, but then immediately went to the kitchen. The first cracker with peanut butter signaling a lapse from the diet was enough to let the floodgates open, and then it was on to the next forbidden food and the next. Because if we were no longer following the rules, then what was the point? Better enjoy this now, because we can't continue like this and we have to go back the next day, meaning to the diet, right? But it's never enough and nothing ever satisfies. You drove to Joe's Donuts and bought 4 donuts and ate them on the way to Dairy Queen, where you bought a pecan mudslide. At this point, this wasn't enjoyment, this was punishment. You had to eliminate this evil from yourself, but the only way you could think to fight it was with its own weapon. You ate until you were sick, until you swore you would never do that again. You sat on the bathroom floor wishing you could throw up, praying that you could just throw up and feel comfortable again. You wanted to be sick so that you would always remember the cost of binging and your mind would magically correct itself for you. You wouldn't have to fight the urge because you would be naturally conditioned against it. Well, it didn't work like that. You went to bed in so much pain that you had to sleep on your back and woke up the next day in pain. That soreness, that signals that you are gaining weight too quickly for your skin to stretch to accommodate it. Every time this happens, you wonder, you say to God, when will this end? When will be the last binge? Because it's always just one last one. There is never a last binge, only the next one. Remember the first time this happened when you purposefully and mindfully binged? There was no signal, no catalyst. You had just been living so strictly, excuse me, and eating so regimented that perhaps you just had to break free from it. You ate a whole tray of biscuits standing in the kitchen with butter and jam, and then those were gone, you put butter and jam on crackers. You didn't know why you were doing this, other than a strange feeling in the back of your mind that you hated yourself and wanted to destroy yourself. Then it was Christmas, and the scores of treats you indulged in because you had been so strict. You deserved a little rebellion and treats. But you couldn't stop, and you gained 14 pounds over Christmas. Remember waking up and feeling sore, bloated, like a hangover, but from sugar and fat? Remember all the things you cooked simply for the excuse of being able to snitch from them? You can't remember anything from that Christmas but the food, can you? After the holidays, you were horrified with yourself. How many one last binges did you go on before you decided to quit sugar entirely? How many times have you quit sugar, naming it as the culprit? How long have you hiked, calculating how many calories you burned? How many calories you could eat that day, or should eat beforehand to keep up your strength, but you kept binging. Even if you could lose 10 pounds, you could gain 5 back in binges before you lost the next 10, and on and on. You knew you had a problem, but your addiction told you whatever it could to keep going. We'll tackle this problem tomorrow. If you just binge tonight, tomorrow will be good. I have to get this out of my system. Even if I fight it, the urge is still there, so what credit is it to me if I don't binge? It's okay, you have a problem. You're solving a problem with food. One day we'll find something else to solve this problem, but right now there's only food. Right now we will be a compulsive eater, but we will not always be a compulsive eater. One day this problem will go away, but right now I have to do this. This is not a binge. This is indulging yourself in what you have been deprived of for so long. You are finding your way. One day you will learn how to eat. If I just have chocolate, I will feel better, and then I won't need to binge on other foods. I just need a snack to get me through the afternoon. I'd better eat this now because I don't know if I'll get dinner later. It's okay to eat as much of this as I want. It's part of my recovery. Eventually, if I keep eating so much of this, I will get sick of it. Right, and on and on and on. Right? Definitely an internal problem. Remember what it's like going from drive-through to drive-through, going to stores and picking out just the right binge foods. It is almost exciting and thrilling, the anticipation and planning of the binge. Oh, the possibilities. You have money and a car. You have all the access to every store, every food you could ever want. The only excitement you get these days, isn't it? Oh, and what pleasure you'll have sitting only with your carrot cake and your cookies, almost like a clandestine lover, just you and them. No one watching you, judging what you are eating. It's so pleasurable, isn't it, eh? But how long does it last? How long before you are sick and can no longer taste what you are eating? Excuse me. But stopping is not possible. You keep searching for that pleasure, more pleasure, the next sensation, the next fix. That tickle on your tongue, that warm sensation in your belly, turns sour and you can't even move or walk. You just know to keep going because once it's over, then comes the guilt, the realization that you will always be like this. The fat that is quickly being processed and deposited on your ever-expanding belly and thighs, but you keep going back because it is all you have. It's an abusive relationship where you get so much more abuse than you do the minor taste of food from the food that you eat. Remember, that it is not worth it. No food is worth it. No temporary pleasure and thrill from the freedom to eat whatever you want will ever give you what you want. You have to find that, but you will not find it in a grocery store or a drive-through. It will not give you relief. It will only prolong your addiction and your suffering. Whatever anxiety, anger, sadness you are trying to get rid of is only replaced by feelings of guilt and stress over food. You might as well keep the original problem instead of creating a new one. Please remember that your addiction will tell you anything and reason it in any way, shape, or form. You're killing yourself and making yourself miserable. You're limiting your experiences and closing yourself off from people. Be free. You are young and attractive and you want to enjoy life. Life is not and will never be food. So, just an example. I have hundreds of these, and I plan to read more just so people can continue to understand that the actual suffering that goes on when people are in compulsive behavior with food, which is what creates obesity. It's not about sedentary lifestyle. It's not about not eating healthy foods. And it's a very, very serious condition, a very serious problem. And I can offer a solution if you'd like to participate in my classes or work with me. You can get in contact with me at beyondcompulsion.com. That's beyondcompulsion.com. You can email me at beyondcompulsionllc.com, beyondcompulsionllc.com, or you can just text me or call me. I'm at 503-502-9340. That's 503-502-9340, and I do private sessions. So there's a lot of options there on how we can do that virtually during these COVID times, etc. So if you're feeling like you need to be like, you can't speak out about how you really feel about being obese and having this compulsive relationship with food because it's not politically incorrect, and you really feel like you don't want to be part of promoting this to young people like it's really okay, call me or contact me and let's get to work. And I look forward to sharing more remember letters. I have hundreds of them. So till next time, have a great day.